Oh, let me see if I got audio testing. Okay, people in the live chat, let us know if we're live. Actually, Ali, can you also check?
Yep. Yeah, I'm here. I've got the screen open. I'm ready.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I think we're live. Are we live? Anybody in the live chat? Can
Oh,
you let
yeah,
us
we
know?
are.
We are.
We are live. Hold on. Let me mute this tab. Okay. Should I go?
Right. You guys are live. Audio is coming through. Thank you, Mars. Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, welcome everybody to another special Ask Us Anything episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. A couple of things I want to get through. Right. First of all, my name is Ali Rizvi, and with me is Armin Navabi. You guys all know. I just wanted to get to a few things really, really quickly. First of all, the website is up. It's called secularjihadist.com. When you go there, you can find our Patreon link. It's patreon.com/SJME. And we're actually working on a project right now where we're hoping to get to 500 patrons. Once we get to 500 patrons, we're going to be able to translate some of our podcasts. And because we have a huge chunk of our audience is in Muslim majority countries, so we want to translate it into Arabic, into Urdu, into Farsi or Persian, Malay, Bengali, all of these other languages, so we can reach them out there. So that's the next phase of this project, and we can do that with your help if you sign up as a patron. If you can't sign up as a patron, you can't donate financially. First of all, you can do that for as little as a month. If you go there, you basically have a payment per episode, and if you can set a monthly maximum, so it won't go over that. It gives you that option. But if that's something that you don't want to do, that is perfectly fine. We still want you. We still value you just as much as anybody else. So share, tell your friends about it, put it on your social media timeline, whatever you can do to help, and go to iTunes and give us a rating. So those are all things that you can do to kind of help if you find this podcast of value. Anyway, I had to get that out of the way.
Great.
So we're going to be taking this as a public thing. So we're going to be taking questions from everybody, and we're really looking forward to it. There's a lot that's happening that we want to talk about. I want to start by congratulating, well, not congratulating, it's kind of a somber thing, but I want to, I guess, give kudos to Armin because he was right. So a little while ago, we talked about Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And this is around the time he was being lauded for all of the reforms that he was doing about letting women vote and letting women drive. But I said I was cautiously optimistic because Raif Badawi was still in jail. He wasn't doing anything about political prisoners. He was still bombing Yemen. But Armin was completely on the ball then. He said right there, he said, this is all bullshit. He's still doing these, horrible humanitarian atrocities in Yemen. And he did not see anything good coming out of it. And now with this, just this gruesome incident of the assassination and the killing and dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi journalist who was in exile and who was critical of the Saudi government. Now that that's happened, it's just it's pretty clear where he's at, and I think the whole world has taken notice.
Yeah, but I don't understand why it wasn't clear before, because he's been doing what he did to this journalist, to so many other people, to children, to people not just in Yemen, to people in Saudi Arabia, to other journalists within Saudi Arabia, to political activists in Saudi Arabia, to a lot of women rights activists, but the thing is, this shows how different the way of people's thinking is, how it's based on emotion rather than actual suffering and harm, right? Like, think about now the whole world is like turning on bin Salman and telling, oh my God, this guy is so horrible. And yeah, killing this journalist was bad. But are we seriously, like, how was this not an issue when he was killing innocent civilians in Yemen?
Yeah, that's a conversation.
Saudi activists, right?
Yeah, that's a conversation I had with someone just yesterday. I was thinking, they're like, wow, what he did was terrible. I'm like, well, the thing is, we've been talking about Raif Badawi now for years and years and years, since he went into prison. Chrystia Freeland in Canada, and Justin Trudeau, they actually came out, they went into a huge controversy and Saudi Arabia broke off diplomatic ties with them because they started arresting the women who had fought for the right of women to drive. The same women who had been fighting for that for years. He's thrown them all in jail, and now he's trying to take the credit for actually giving women that privilege. He's been doing, and then of course there's a Yemen issue. It's strange that after everything terrible that the Saudis have done, essentially forever, not to mention the 9/11 attacks where 15 of the 19 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia, all of this, and now this is the incident, and as gruesome as it is, obviously it's a horrible thing that they did, but this is the one that's actually making people take notice.
And it's pretty obvious why. I mean, obviously because first of all, it was on foreign land. It was it wasn't in Turkey. It was inside a consulate. It was a journalist that was active in United States and other countries, so it was known to Western.
He's a permanent resident of the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. The story is interesting. It basically makes people more interested in the story because he went in and people are interested in a detective story. It just shows to you that it's based, like, the news is not based on what's important at all, or people don't pay attention based on, like, you could kill millions of children and people are like, oh yeah, war, whatever. And then you have one. I mean, I'm not trying to make it seem like the death of this person is not an issue. Obviously, that's fucked up, right? And obviously, it's important. But I'm just saying, yeah, you have one person walking into a consulate and getting killed, and now the whole world is against Saudi Arabia, compared to millions of children where nobody gave a shit. Not only did they give a shit, they funded it, they supported it, they sold weapons to Saudi Arabia, knowing it's going to be used for it. And I don't know, like I just the amount of care and attention we give to things is so off based on what matters. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, it's been better than like 1,000 years ago. Like, we're moving in the wrong direction, but we're so far away from where we need to be. It's just I don't understand. Anyways, let's go to the live chat. But unless you wanted to add something, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to tell you guys I'm going to actually be in the description of this. I'll be posting 2 articles that I wrote. One was actually in, I think, 2009, 2010, which was essentially about Saudi Arabia. It was called "How We All Bowed to the Saudi King," and this was after the Obama controversy, where people said he bowed to him before Bush held hands with him. Trump bowed to him and accepted a medal and all this stuff. So we'd been writing about it then. And then the second one is one that I wrote for CNN. Which is called "How Has the World Bought the Saudis?" How Saudi Arabia bought the world's silence. It was something like that. It was after the Raif Badawi flogging in 2015 and the Charlie Hebdo killings. So I'll be posting that for some of you who want to know how this dialogue has been going among people like us, just ex-Muslims or people who grew up there, and how we've been discussing Saudi Arabia for a long time, and it seems like people are waking up. And I think that the oil dependence isn't as serious an issue as it was before. And I want to make this really important point before we go to the live chat.
It's not just oil sales, it's arms sales as well.
It's arms sales. But the reason that there is that connection with Saudi Arabia, with a lot of Western powers, is because a lot of the West is dependent on Saudi Arabia for oil. And if they make Saudi Arabia angry, it would really, really hurt their economies. So this is why I think that when we talk about clean energy and renewable energy, and we talk about that as an environmental issue, it's not just an environmental issue. It is a national security issue. Like the fact that we're still dependent on oil from Saudi Arabia, and I know it's decreasing, but the fact that we're still dependent on oil on Saudi Arabia for the oil, this is the reason they're able to export all of their ultra Salafist terrorist ideology, and this is the reason they're able to get away with a lot of these really horrific crimes. I want people to make sure that they understand.
One silver lining for having Trump as a president is that he just says things, and it was so amazing to me that he just came out and said, yeah, this could be an issue, but hey, Saudi Arabia buys a lot of weapons from us, and we can't say no to all that money. I'm like,
Yeah.
holy fuck! Like,
So now we know, and he's not the
I mean,
first one.
we always knew, but I've never seen
A guy actually say
I've
that.
never seen the president of the United States actually coming out and actually saying that.
He's amazing.
Publicly to everybody, like, yeah, they might have killed it, but they gave us a lot of money for arms, and we just can't say no to all that money. They just basically said it. Like, okay.
This thing with, I mean, especially with Trump now, people are giving him a lot of flack, and I can't stand Trump, as most of you know. But honestly, all of the other presidents, Democratic or Republican, before this, have kissed Saudi ass for decades and decades now, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing with Trump is that he just brought it out into the open, and it's amazing that he said he saw Putin. He's like, well, Putin told me. He looked me in the eye and he said that I did not meddle, so I believe him. Saudi Arabia, I spoke to them and they strongly denied it, and I believe them. But when it comes to like Blasey Ford, he's like, no, I don't know, it's a con job. So it's fascinating how Trump works. As long as it's men in positions of power, he will believe them. Otherwise, he has
Did he compare it to
Kavanaugh?
Yeah, he compared it to Kavanaugh.
And Kavanaugh must have been thrilled about that. He's like, yeah, Kavanaugh was guilty until proven innocent. Now you're doing the same thing with the Saudis. Kavanaugh must have loved the fact that he's throwing him in with MBS.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that, but I'm hoping that what Trump is doing, because the anti-Trump hatred is so much, people are now going to pay more attention to Saudi Arabia because of what Trump is saying. So, I mean, it's not the best way to do it, but I'm hoping more people now pay attention. But yeah, let's go to the live chat.
Let's go to the live chat. So we have a lot of people here already. Thanks everybody for joining. Zane is asking, many in the secular community like to point out how irreligious Europe is. How come Poland is more religious than other European countries?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't really know that much about it.
It might be. This is a guess. Somebody could correct me if I'm wrong. Christianity was seen originally as a force against communism, and now it's being seen as a force against Islam.
Yeah, that's possible. I think that and so Poland has a history of kind of, especially with communism. So this is kind of interesting. This happened, like the U.S. was always very secular. In God we trust didn't appear on the money until
again. In the U.S. was also Christianity had a huge comeback as a force against communism.
They did. So with the rise of the Soviet Union, I mean, even in the Pledge of Allegiance, when they added under God in the Pledge of Allegiance, that was in the 1900s. And even the "In God We Trust" on the money actually was sometime in the 1800s. So, but they amped up this whole idea, religion into politics in the U.S. Like you'll see that U.S. candidates go out and always talk about how Christian they are, and that's a really, really central part of their platform, especially the Republicans, but Democrats too. And if any of them are sort of secular, they have to pretend like they're Christian and they're religious because. This has been a reaction. That's what separated them from the godless communists. So,
and actually, if you look, and this could be completely off, but you guys could correct us if we're wrong. If you look at Eastern European countries, they had more of a communist threat compared to Western European countries, right? So that's why maybe Christianity was used as a force against communism.
Like with Stalin.
Because it was closer to Russia and everything. So maybe Christianity was used as a force against communism more in Eastern European countries than Western. But again, correct us if we're wrong. This is just a hypothesis. Hypothesis. Yeah.
Hypothesis. Yeah. So Zara K, our most recent guest, which is getting that episode, by the way, Zara, is getting a lot of really good feedback. So we're really happy to have
Ali,
you on.
We need to add links. Ali is in charge of adding links and stuff. Zara, can you send the links that you want?
Yeah, she did, and I have to add them, and I will do that, and I'll do that Facebook introduction we talked about too. Okay. And yes, I did get a haircut, and it was a way for me to lose 2 pounds, considering what my hair was like before. So, yeah. Okay. I don't know if it's working though. Then Beej is sorry guys, I'm just going to go through the questions. But wait, Renzo is saying the anti-communist resistance in Poland led to a revival of Catholicism as a reaction to Soviet state atheism. So yeah, that's what we were saying. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Renzo.
Good guess.
Yeah. Then Jimmy, Jimmy is saying Armin is always right. Alhamdulillah, Armin. So yeah.
Not always.
And then yeah,
Thank you.
and Renzo's adding to that. He said in other countries in Eastern Europe, like East Germany, Czech Republic, state atheism was more widely accepted and internalized. What's really interesting is that the only country ever in history that had, like, the Soviet Union and all these communist countries, they just didn't allow religion. But there was one country in history that has actually enforced state atheism as a state policy specifically, and that's Albania, which was actually over 90% Muslim, which is fascinating that the only country in history that actually had enforced atheism as a state thing was a over 90% Muslim country. That's if you guys want to look that up, you should look it up. It's actually a really interesting story. Mars is saying there was an awful video clip of Louis Farrakhan making a comparison between Semites and termites. Can you give us a lowdown to who this twit is and how he became prominent? I
saw a tweet, somebody talking about it, but I haven't looked into it much. This is quite recent.
So Louis Farrakhan was part of the civil rights movement, and he ran the Nation of Islam. So there's in the black community in the U.S. There was this figure Elijah Muhammad, and he brought a lot of black people to Islam, and Louis Farrakhan was one of them. Muhammad Ali was another. But Louis Farrakhan was, even though that time he was revered as a civil rights activist, he tends to be, because he's obviously very religious, he tends to be extremely anti-Semitic and very racist as well. I mean, he talks about like it's not just a matter of, I mean, he does the same thing with white people that white people had done with blacks for a long time. I mean, not in terms of enslaving them, but just in terms of the virulent hate that he has for them. So Louis Farrakhan is just somebody that. Go ahead.
No, I've never seen termite used as an insult before. Is that normal? Like, we should invent new ones. Like, is it anything that is not human or insects can be used? We should call somebody ladybugs. Like these people are just ladybugs.
Yeah, that might be. But yeah, termites is a pretty common insult. Right. There's But yeah, that's kind of his history, and over the years, I think people have become more conscious. They've started distancing themselves from him, including Keith Ellison and some of the other people who really, really liked him before. He tended to be a hero, but now as the society is becoming a little bit different, his kind of rhetoric is just not sustainable anymore in this world, and he hasn't really made any attempts to modify it. But yeah, he's a bit of an asshole. He's essentially like the KKK in reverse. Now, Aditya is asking, what are your thoughts about Mufti Abu Layth? Do you know who that is, Armin?
No, maybe if I see a picture of him. Hold on.
Oh, you're a face guy? I'd have to look him up.
Yeah, I'm a face guy.
Okay, let me see Mufti, if I can...
Oh, wow. When you write Mufti, that's the first name that comes up, so he must be famous.
Yeah, so we haven't... I guess we haven't...
This guy doesn't dress like a Mufti. That's a weird kind of Mufti.
Yeah, so I'm seeing some videos here. Does masturbation invalidate the fast? Okay, so he's apparently a guy who gives fatwas online, it seems.
Oh, we should do some video reviews on some
fatwa on tattoos, fatwa on... Yeah, no, I'm actually... I don't know him, Aditya, so but I'll look at it and I'll see what he's up to, and then we can probably comment about it after that. Jimmy's saying media is so fickle, some people's deaths are more important than others. Yeah, and this is also, they've done experiments, and I know Paul Bloom has talked about this, where when you have one person as the target of anything, then it generates a lot more empathy. So they've done studies where they had sort of one girl who had leukemia, and they asked for donations for her, showed her picture, everybody sort of looked at her, related to her, and they sent loads of donations. And then later, if you ask them, they're like, okay, there's a group of 10 girls and they have leukemia, can you donate to them? People would pay a lot less because they can't relate to groups of people as they can relate to individuals. So sometimes when you have this is a point Yuval Noah Harari makes, and I think he's 100% right on it, is that whenever you have an individual, whenever you have a story, there's a story behind something, then people relate to it more emotionally.
So why can't we go to Yemen and find like individuals and like highlight their stories?
That's
Like,
what we need to do. That's, you know, and I've mentioned this before here a lot of times, that people actually emotionally connect with stories, and when they're emotionally stimulated, that's when they actually rise into action. If you give them stats, they're like, well, this percentage of this thing is like this and blah blah blah. They're like, oh, okay, all right, it's just stats. They process it cerebrally. It's more of an intellectual processing. But when they hear a story, they process it emotionally, and that's when they actually rise into action, right? And they get together and they do something. So this is something that I remember we talked to Jerry Coyne about this. We've talked to sort of Steven Pinker about it too, and you know, about the importance of stories and whether we should bring that as an element of the secular movement also, since we tend to speak very rationally and cerebrally about things. So I think there may be some value in that. I think that's a really good idea, Armin. If there's somebody who can go there and they can tell, they can bring about.
To be fair, there are journalists right there underground risking their lives trying to document everything, right? It's just that when they post stuff, it doesn't get as much coverage. I think maybe somebody should go follow one person's life through in Yemen and just make a documentary story of it. I don't know. Yeah.
It doesn't even, a lot of times it doesn't even have to be real. I mean, there's many times, like Stalin used this technique, Hitler used this technique to do that. They would pose with like one kid or one, and they'd try to get nationalist sentiment, rising. Island Kurdi, remember Island Kurdi, the little kid who was washed up, this refugee who was washed up on the Turkish shore.
That one image is responsible for an entire, the European Union, completely turning on itself. Just that one picture.
It did. Exactly. And there was this other kid in the sort of orange thing who had been rescued from the rubble. I mean, there's so much. Like, these singular stories have a huge impact, and I think that it would be great if you guys know any journalists who are working in Yemen, that kind of storytelling.
I know one. I have a Yemen list. What's this guy? Is this
these are the kinds of things that actually jar even dictators. They put pressure even on like this guy Khashoggi. We were just talking about Khashoggi. He's a journalist. He's a single person. We have this one incident, as you said, Armin. It's a detective story. It's an emotional thing. Their blood is boiling, and now it has actually put an immense amount of pressure on MBS that he hasn't seen since he came to power.
The journalist, freelance journalist based in Yemen. He's right in the middle of everything, and he posts a lot of these videos on Twitter. His name is Ahmad Al-Gohbari. So yeah, maybe we should. I'll put a link to his Twitter account in the live chat as well. Maybe you could link in later to in the description.
Yeah, we can probably reach out to him. We can talk about how.
Oh yeah, we should invite him on the podcast maybe.
Yeah, well, my day job is actually in communications. I work in medical communications, but this is something that we talk about quite a bit. So this is something that I think it'd be good to work with people over there on, in terms of not only reporting the story, but how to tell the story. And I think that's very important. That is why the religious people win so much. I mean, what is religion? It's a bunch of stories. We talk about it all the time. Fairy tales, myths, right? Epics. That's what they are. And they connect with people emotionally. They use art. They use music, calligraphy, paintings, all of this stuff. And it jars people into action. People do things that they would never do otherwise. So it's pretty incredible how powerful it is.
Next.
So Renzo, and now the Catholic. Okay, so he's talking about the Poland as well. And he's saying the same kind of thing. So Uday is saying, are you supporting that Christian lady who's on death row in Pakistan for blasphemy? So we should probably talk about this. You know about this, Armin? About Asia Bibi?
Wait, no, wait. Sorry, I was reading the live chat. What was the question?
The Christian lady who's on trial for blasphemy.
Oh
in Pakistan,
shit!
Right?
Yes, Yes. Okay. Can
We
you?
have posted about her, but we haven't. I don't think we've discussed her case
Yeah, we
here.
posted about Atheist on Atheist Republic as well as on it as well. By the way, if any news like this or any stories like this, we do have an Atheist Republic news section. If you guys want to recommend it on there as well, like leave it in the comment section of our YouTube account on the news stories, and we'll cover it on the news. But here we need to talk about it maybe on Secular Justice. Do you think we should have like a guest or just to talk about it or something? I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually I do have a potential guest who could come on. I'd have to ask him if he's okay with it. He's a friend of mine, so he's actually the son of the governor who was assassinated, who stood up for him.
Holy shit! Yeah. Okay. So, yes, please. Let's bring him. Let's bring him here.
Yeah. I'd love to have him talk specifically about this issue, because I know that he and I and all of us want that to get prominent. So, but just for the people who don't know about this, there was a woman named Bibi. She's a Christian woman in Pakistan. She got into an altercation with a few women in her village, and she was accused of insulting the Prophet, insulting Muhammad and Islam. So it's basically an entire mob wanted her killed, and they still do. And she was put in jail on blasphemy charges. So at that time, the governor of the province, the largest province in Pakistan, is called Punjab. And the governor of that province, a man named Salman Taseer, he came up and he was outraged by this, and he went and he met her, and he said that these blasphemy laws are unfair. To sort of I'm paraphrasing here, and he rose up against the blasphemy laws. Shortly thereafter, his own bodyguard, a man named Mumtaz Qadri, assassinated him. He shot him I think 27 times, several dozen times, and the governor was assassinated. Now, what happened was that hundreds of lawyers came in and they said, we're going to defend the assassin. Millions, I'm not exaggerating, millions of people came out and they said that they are in support of Mumtaz Qadri because they were supporting him shooting the governor because the governor opposed blasphemy laws. And I know people who've come from Pakistan who did not recognize the country that they saw when they saw these crowds, that they were so big. They were celebrating an assassin. Eventually, he was tried and he was executed. When he was executed at his funeral, I want you guys to go up to Google, do an image search of Mumtaz Qadri funeral. That's Mumtaz Qadri, Qadri funeral. And you'll see the pictures. It is astounding how many people. There are now shrines built to him. There are statues built to him, the assassin. So the woman
just to summarize what Ali said, there's a girl that Muslims want to kill just because she said something offensive, what Muslims find offensive. In Pakistan. A lot of Muslims want her to. She's been in jail for 8 years now.
Yeah.
So now she's on death row just because she said what did Muhammad do for humanity? That's all she said, right? And she's on death row right now. So there was one governor that said that we should have mercy on her, and because of him saying that, his own bodyguard killed him for saying that we should have mercy on this little girl that because she said something that didn't harm anybody. Her bodyguard and the bodyguard is now celebrated as a hero. And when he was killed, people came, hundreds of thousands of people showed up to worship this motherfucker. And his where he's buried is now turned into a fucking shrine, right? That's the world we're living in right now. As Ali said, go look at the pictures. You can't believe how many people showed up to celebrate this man that killed a governor that was trying to defend an innocent woman.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. So I will put up the links in the description too. I made a note of that. So that was the story. So Bibi was a woman initially in question, and recently last week she was tried, and this is sort of the last chance where the Supreme Court had to decide whether she's going to be executed for blasphemy or whether she was going to be let go. And what they did was they deferred the decision. Now.
And that's all she did, right? So basically, she went to get water from a well, right?
Yeah.
And the Muslim woman there said like no Muslim woman, nobody could touch this water well as well because she's not a Muslim, and she touched this water well, and this was supposed to be for only Muslims, and they said that she needs to convert to Islam or something if she wants to keep getting water from that well, and she responded, "What has Muhammad ever done for humanity?" And it was a question; it wasn't even a statement. And she got into that was enough for her to get into all this shit.
Yeah, yeah. So I think this is a crazy case. And then last week, as I said, the Supreme Court in Pakistan deferred the case. They said we're going to make a decision later. So she stays in jail, and that's a relatively heartening decision only because if they release her from prison, she's dead. If they release her from prison, the mobs are gonna come. They're gonna lynch her. Right. There are loads of lawyers. There's a lot of law enforcement that favors the mob in this. They're part of the mob, so their security just can't be guaranteed. So hopefully they're keeping her in prison to keep her safe, and then hopefully they'll send her out into some other country where she can live in exile. But right now that's the situation. So
B just correcting me in the live chat. What she said is actually this: who has Muhammad ever saved? That's what she said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Allegedly, right? So.
But who cares?
So all of the stuff.
Who cares what she like?
Even if she did or not, I mean, it shouldn't matter, of course. But even, I want to do.
Fuck Muhammad. Like, who cares? Like, oh fuck. Oh my God.
I mean, it's not something you should be killed for. I wanted to give. We had a previous episode with actually one of my favorite episodes that we did was with Rafia, who is a Pakistani American woman whose husband, who lives in Pakistan, kept her child separated from her for 8 years, her daughter, and now they're reunited, thankfully. But part of what he did was he used Pakistan's blasphemy laws to keep her separated from her daughter in the courts of Pakistan, and she had to. She told her story in terms of what she had to go through to get her daughter back because she is an ex-Muslim. So
is such a like what's happening? Like it's so bizarre. It's one of the worst places to be for. I mean, when it comes to freedom of speech, I think the worst are what Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and North Korea. Right?
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
I mean, Iran is bad, but I don't think it's.
Well, Iran, you don't have the population of Iran. There's enough people there who would. I mean, Iran's pretty bad. And we saw what happened with Jason.
Iran is really bad when you go anti-government. But I mean, like, at least if you tell your friends that, like, oh, fuck Muhammad, fuck Islam, you don't have to worry about if you know your friends, you don't have to worry about that, right? But in Pakistan, you're worried. You're worried about everybody, right?
Yeah, because the population en masse is actually really, really twisted when it comes to this now, and it wasn't like that for the longest time. But anyway, I'm gonna just grab my water here, and then
Zara is saying, Ali, I was your favorite episode. No one else. Me.
Hey, I said one of my. Okay.
Okay.
This is Zara. I gotta say, I love your attitude, and I think it's like very sorely needed, and it's a lot of fun. You know, it's actually there's some people like you remind me a little bit of Alishba when she came on our podcast. Alishba's episode was like, I think, religion, Islam, and Me Too, women, Islam, and Me Too, or whatever. The first thing she said was, "This is going to be your best episode yet."
All right, let's
go. She announced it right at the beginning.
By the way, I have some Facebook questions as well.
Okay, so B just saying 30 million expected to starve in Yemen. That number is too mind-boggling. Maybe one person is easier for the mind to comprehend. Yeah, that's essentially
and
what we're saying.
This is not like a natural disaster or anything. This is Saudi Arabia using American weapons to bomb ports specifically to starve people.
Exactly.
Like, starvation is actually used as a weapon against the people there. Like this is not a side thing that happened with that intention. Starvation was actually used against people as a weapon. But go on.
Right. Nusantara is saying, many of my Muslim friends are well aware of the Saudi corruption. Many Muslims worldwide aspire to Erdogan, that's the president of Turkey. They seem secular in their condemnation of Saudis, but the Saudis are preferable to HT and AQ. Hizb ut-Tahrir and Al-Qaeda. The Saudis are preferable? Yeah, Um,
I don't know. The Saudis last longer.
yeah, I don't know. I think that even most Muslims I know are not fans of Saudi Arabia. I've seen that pretty much consistently. That even moderate Muslims, they feel like Saudi Arabia gives them a bad name, and they think Saudis are completely messed up. So this is kind of something that I've seen overall, and they, that they will actually support some of the terrorist groups. Like they'll support Al Qaeda, they'll support Hizb ut-Tahrir, they'll support the Muslim Brotherhood, but when it comes to Saudi Arabia, they say, "Oh, Saudi Arabia has hijacked Islam," even though Saudi Arabia is no different. Um, so Zara is saying any moral person would know it's ridiculous that she's on the death row. Completely agreed. William, how commonplace and significant do you think Taqiyya is in the West by Muslims in the public, like Linda Sarsour? I don't think I think Taqiyya is something. I hear this from a lot of sort of right wing, the far right types, the far right wing types, who accuse pretty much everybody of Taqiyya, including me. They say that Taqiyya, they think the Majid Nawaz is doing Taqiyya. Taqiyya is the idea that you are allowed to lie about what you believe in order for some political purposes or for security. And this is a concept mainly in Shia Islam, where Shias, when they were persecuted, they were told that they were allowed to lie for their own security. But I don't think that most people, I think Linda Sarsour actually believes what she says. I am not a closet, I get called a closet Islam. Maybe I'll leave that doubt out there. But I usually, when people start talking about so-and-so's doing Taqiyya, I think that they're not very well versed on what Taqiyya is and it's hard to take them seriously. That's my view.
Taqiyya used to be a Shia thing.
Yeah.
It used to be a Shia thing, Sunni, but it was mostly about surviving under Sunni rule. So it was mostly about being Shia. Sunnis are in power. You're Shia. If Sunnis find out that you're Shia, they're gonna fuck you up. So you get to say that, hey, I'm actually Sunni, while you're under Sunni rule. So that was basically what it was. And some people might take it further and use that as an excuse to say other lies, but it's not something that is very well known or very much used. In fact, most Muslims have no fucking idea what Taqiyya is. Like a lot of people on the far right were like, "Oh, you can never trust a Muslim because of Taqiyya." Like, yeah, but most Muslims have no fucking idea what you're talking about when you say Taqiyya.
When people talk about Taqiyya, especially people in the West, so-and-so's doing Taqiyya, I just don't take it seriously. I'm like, okay, these guys, they don't know what they're talking about. Right. Harris is asking, what is the update on the Saudi-Canada relationship? I think for the most part, it's the same. The diplomatic ties are still cut. Armin, correct me if I'm wrong. I know that they've relaxed some stuff on the students staying here. I don't know about the hospitals or all the other stuff that they did. But they're apparently still doing negotiations in the background and trying to figure out what they're going to do. But diplomatic ties are still cut. I know that Saudia Airlines has suspended all flights out of Canada, which is interesting because my father-in-law actually came here on a Saudia flight, and he had to go back on a Saudia flight. Now he had to change everything because he can't go back because Saudia isn't flying out of Toronto anymore. So. Yeah, it's
I just for me it's strange.
Still in flux.
Yeah, but for me it's strange when people give credit to Canada for being tough on Saudi Arabia. They actually got forced into this position. Like they didn't say anything when it mattered. They didn't say anything, like, even though Trudeau promised to be tougher on Saudi Arabia, to be tougher on human rights violations, to be but when he came to power, he basically went fully silent, right? It did, like, I think as soon as you come to power, they realize how much money is involved and how much of a political suicide it is to say anything against Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah.
So and now,
when you talk to go ahead.
But now Canada was, because of what happened. Saudi Arabia's foreign policy, I think, it's been being run by a whole bunch of like 4-year-olds, because I really don't think that these people are doing. I think it's mostly Ben Salman. Like, doesn't understand anything. Like they're idiots. Like I'm pretty sure there's smarter guys there they just don't have access to power anymore because of Ben Salman, but they basically forced Canada in a position to take a tough stance against Saudi Arabia. And now people are like, yay, congratulations, Canada, finally somebody's saying something. No, they had to react to how Saudi Arabia was treating like a fucking tweet or something.
Now, I'm not gonna be that. I do agree with you that Canada was very late in doing this, and I think there's some other countries like Sweden who have stood up against Saudi Arabia. They brought up like the Raif Badawi issue, but I do know that to credit to Canada, even though so this is a classic thing with the Raif situation. I've talked to Insaf about this, and there's a lot of frustration on this. Is that whenever these sort of senators, when they're running for elections or when they're in the Senate or in Congress, they speak up very vocally about the Raif Badawi issue and the political prisoners in Saudi Arabia. When they get elected into positions of power and they actually have to speak to the Saudis, then they go silent. But credit to Canada, they did speak privately about Raif. Every time they spoke to them, they brought up the human rights abuses of Saudi Arabia. And the other thing is that even though it was very, very late and was long overdue, they did sort of take this stand. And when the Saudis cut off diplomatic relations, they still stood their ground. So credit to Canada when it comes to that. Now I know that they're trying to bend over backwards, trying to fix the situation, but they're not compromising on their original position. And I'm glad someone did. What the weak guy in this, and I think that the thing that sort of led to the Khashoggi killing as well, is that when Canada did this, the U.S. essentially threw Canada under the bus. They're like, well, they're both our allies, and we're not going to get in the middle of it. That's basically what the U.S. took a neutral position between Canada and Saudi Arabia. They took a neutral center of the line position. And when they did that, I think, and combined that with Trump's sort of excusing of Putin and all of his like the way he fawns over world dictators, and Jared Kushner going out and becoming really good friends with MBS and them sort of promoting him. I think that had a lot to do with MBS thinking that he was invisible. He could get away with everything.
Yeah, that guy, everything he has done foreign policy-wise has been great for Iran, he knows they bad can. For Saudi. No, they can't. Like everything he's done has fucked him over. What he did
no. I'm saying that he knew that he could. He knew that he could, and he'd get away with it because there's no red lines. It's like when Obama drew that red line, then he didn't
see the red line. He didn't know there was a red line. Okay, let me count it. Right? Let me tell you the fuck ups. Right, the thing with he didn't keep pushing even when the move against Qatar. Really fucked them over. They thought the United States is going to come support them. At first they did, but then they were like, okay, cut it out, right? And it really made Qatar much stronger than ever before because of what they did, right? The move they did in Lebanon for kidnapping the fucking prime minister, right? Yeah. That was such an embarrassing thing. That was horrible. They managed to do the impossible, which is uniting the Sunnis and Shias in Lebanon against Saudi Arabia. That was impossible to do. Saudi Arabia managed to do that. When it comes to war in Yemen, they thought this was going to be an easy win with all the weapons that they have, with all the technology that they have. They can't defeat Houthis, which is like a fraction of the military power of like something like Hezbollah or Iran, and they can't defeat it. It's been 3 years, and they are desperate. They desperately need money, and they've been wasting so much money on Yemen, and they can't just quit because they can't accept defeat. Their ego and their arrogance does not let them leave without actually a victory. And Iran loves it because it's becoming a money sunk for Saudi Arabia right there, right? At a time where they need so much money, and they're losing so much money. Now the fourth thing is this fucking stupid blunder that they did in their consulate in Turkey, which is gonna. By the way, we got a super chat by Uday. Thank you so much, Uday. Do you want to?
Yeah, Uday saying I thought your yesterday's guest was very wrong on India. Criticizing India/Hinduism is fine, but he was very wrong on several facts. So we had Zubin Madden yesterday, and that episode's going to be out in a little while. It is available for patrons at on our Patreon site. And he is an Indian from a Parsi background. He's an atheist though, so he was an ordained Parsi priest, which is Zoroastrian. So he doesn't really have any skin in the game. He despises Islamic fundamentalism. And he despises Hindu fundamentalism and nationalism. And I thought that he was very good on the subject. That's why I had him on. But we are going to have other people on the subject later on.
Yeah.
So
No, he's
Uday,
pretty good. Yeah.
yeah, that. And I understand that you think he was very wrong. This is obviously a very, very hot button topic.
Yeah, no matter who you
but
bring, somebody's gonna say like, "Oh, this guy doesn't."
Yeah.
People are gonna disagree, and when they disagree, they're gonna accuse of a person that they disagree with as not knowing anything about what they're talking about.
Yeah,
That's the
but
problem.
Uday, send us suggestions on who you think we should bring in, who would give what you think might be a more balanced perspective, and we'd love to speak to them. We'd be happy about it. Okay, now on the same topic, Renzo is saying, I really enjoyed your interview yesterday. The similarities between Hindu nationalism and the caste system on one hand and Christianity and fascism on the other hand were striking. I completely agree. And I really enjoyed the interview. Jim is saying, how many downloads do you get from people in Pakistan?
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know. I have to look that up. But
Do you know, like in terms of percentage? We get a lot. I think is that our main country that we get? That's a Muslim majority country, or
I
is it
think
Saudi
the
Arabia?
main Muslim majority country, I think it's Egypt, but I can double check.
Yeah, and it goes back and forth. I think at one point it was Saudi Arabia, another time it was Pakistan, that's Egypt. So, yeah, we don't know the exact number, but there's a significant percentage of them.
Yeah.
Jimmy's saying, if Saudi lost the oil dollars, would Salafi extremism disappear or at least wane? Yes. Yes, it would.
It might increase in the short term, and then this gets destroyed. Like it might be
Yep.
like go extreme for a few years and then die out.
Yeah. The thing is this, the oil money has kept these guys in. Saudi Arabia hasn't really contributed anything to the world since the family House of Saud took over in the early 1900s. They haven't contributed anything except for oil. So they basically have this thing. It's essentially like winning the lottery. They don't really have any other major contributions to science or to anything else that they've done. So the oil money has allowed them the funding to be able to export Salafist, ultra-conservative Islam. And I'll give you one quick example of how they did this, is that during the Afghan war, when the Afghans were fighting the Soviets and the Mujahideen means people who waged jihad, were heroes to the Americans because they were fighting communism in the Soviet Union from Afghanistan. The Saudis, with the Pakistanis, built a whole bunch of madrasas, like really nice schools in Pakistan. And in these madrasas, the people wanted to send their kids there because they were great schools and they were free, and the kids learned how to read and write. Unfortunately, they only learned how to read and write the Quran, and they were indoctrinated. But instead of paying for like really shitty schools, they had this free, nice building that they could send their kids to. And these kids grew up, and they're the ones who became the Taliban. The word Taliban comes from Talib. The word Talib means student. In Urdu, in Arabic, also I think in Persian, and the Taliban is plural for students. Taliban just means students. These were the students of these madrasas that were funded and built by Saudi Arabia with oil money.
In response to Iran.
Yeah, and the Taliban...
This was all
right.
in response to Iran's 1979 revolution.
Right. On the other hand, you had Osama bin Laden, who came from one of the wealthiest families in Saudi Arabia, the bin Laden construction family. And they, so you had these jihadists that came in. He brought a lot of money with him. And that is what ultimately helped the 9/11 attacks happen. So this kind of stuff, this is why I say that, oil and all of that, I do think that it's important to keep all of that running as a transition. But eventually, renewable energy and clean energy and getting off oil is a national security issue. It's not just an environmental issue. It is a national security issue. It is an anti-terrorist, counter-terrorist measure to get off of oil.
All right, Billy. Okay, so Billy, we got a super chat from Billy B.
Yeah.
Thank you, Billy.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, cool. And he's saying, have you guys seen the channel Islamic Pulse? No, I haven't, but...
I think I have.
Have you?
Maybe, I think I'm going to check. Islamic
Pulse. And
what about it? Do you want us to review?
A Aziz is saying Ali Rizvi is on point here. Thank you. Yeah.
Let me try.
And then
Islamic Pulse is a channel. Okay,
A Aziz also.
I'm gonna subscribe to the Islamic Pulse channel and see if there's anything worth reviewing later.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that and we'll discuss it next time. Thank you, Billy. A Aziz is also saying he's got a book recommendation by Juan Cole, or an article recommendation, it seems. Why a U.S. divorce from Saudi Arabia would be good for us and them. And I'll see, I can't really copy and paste it here. So yeah, so that's juancole.com. The article is called Why a U.S. Divorce from Saudi Arabia would be good for us and them. So Google it and check it out.
Okay, the Islamic Pulse channel apparently is Shia propaganda, so I'm now very interested in that. So I'm going to use it. Yeah. All right, thank you, Billy.
Because if there's one thing that Armin needs more of, it's Shia propaganda. So.
Okay. All right,
Matt is saying this is sort of an Islamic conspiracy theory. There's a hadith about the mountain of gold, which is oil, and why it's haram. It's a prediction hadith. It's pretty interesting. Oh, I actually didn't even know about that.
You know, I recently found out about a hadith from the Apostate Prophet channel about Muhammad warning about the Jews. And he said the Jews will be in Isfahan, right? The Jews will come from Isfahan, and they're going to be wearing Persian robes and stuff, right? It's so interesting because this is the end time prediction. But there's no more, like, this was when Iran was a great place for the Jews to be. But now, obviously, they're not there anymore as much, right? So it's kind of shows
Jews, they figure a lot more prominently in the Hadith than they do, and I mean they're all over the Quran too, but in the Hadith they're especially prominent and with a lot of really specific details. And then and one of the reasons for this is the initial people who were recruited to write down the Hadith, that's 200 years after Muhammad died, were the Jewish converts to Islam. People who used to be Jewish and they converted to Islam because they had experience with writing the Talmud, like a lot of the rabbinic.
Can we have an episode with the name "The Jew in Islam" and go over all the hadiths that talks about Jewish people in Islam?
I'd be really interested in talking about the Judaism and Islam, where they
Jewish people.
Jewish people in
like
Islam,
the hadith that says that the Jews are hiding behind the trees and the stone, and the trees are going to say like, hey, there's a Jew hiding behind me, Muslims come kill him, right? Like we should go we should like talk. And I mean, people talk about hadith predicting things, but this is a clear hadith that predicted things wrongly, right? Like saying like, hey, the Jews are in Iran, they're not in Iran anymore, compared to like if Muhammad had a hadith saying that the Jews in the New World, because like a lot of the Jews are in the U.S., for example, that would be like, oh my God, look, this is a great prediction that the Jews would be in the United States, right? So, but no, according to Muhammad, they were in Iran. So, I mean a lot of the predictions there are wrong. But anyways.
Mm-hmm. It would be kind of interesting because I mean in the Hadith is also where you see a lot of Jewish things that are not in the Quran, like circumcision and stoning to death for adultery, that they end up in the Hadith. So it's fascinating looking at the history of it and at what role the converted Jews played in it, or just regular Jews. Now, next question from Shiraz: if a Muslim is ordered by his parents to divorce his wife, is he supposed to obey them? So this is actually, so I'll tell you how this question goes. You have rights that are given to you by Allah, and you have rights that are, and there are other things, sort of your obligations to the people around you, like your parents. The rights given to you by Allah are supreme. So one thing quick example of this is, in Pakistan, when they first allowed polygamy, with polygamy, you have to take, Ayub Khan, one of the presidents, allowed, he said that you have to take permission from your first wife. And then this became sort of knowledge for a lot of Muslims. They started saying, well, Islam says you can only marry a second wife if you take permission from the first one. That's not true, because polygamy is a God-given right. So no government, no parents, nobody else can supersede that. If you want to, not even your first wife, if you want to take a second wife, that's your God-given right. And you don't have to tell anybody before you do it. And then there are other obligations. So it depends on if he doesn't want to divorce his wife, and if his marriage is his right from God, then no, he doesn't have to obey his parents technically.
Okay.
I have a cousin who I was roommates with for 3 months, or 3 years actually, who went to Qom to become an alim,
Oh wow.
Armin. So we had these discussions, and he told me all of these things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
So.
go. Next question.
Okay, Renzo, I explained this in live chat a few minutes ago. Revival. Okay, we're just talking the Polish Catholicism. He's talking about that. But anyway, Mubin is saying, I just read a TechCrunch article about how a lot of Silicon Valley startups are worried about losing their Saudi funding. It's crazy how deeply they're involved in the tech world. This is a really important point. This is also another issue. One of the reasons that people aren't are hesitant. The Americans are hesitant to go after Saudi Arabia. Not only will their economy and their unemployment, everything rise if they piss off Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabia does anything to them, but there are a lot of the Saudis actually have a lot of they own a lot of the U.S. economy. I think Prince Talal.
3%, no?
Yeah, well, I mean, Prince Talal, I think owns. I think it's more like 15-16%. I'd have to look it up.
Of the U.S. economy, no, 3%. That's huge.
Yeah.
3% is
15,
huge.
16% of tech or something like that. I remember reading. I shouldn't be saying this because I don't have it verified, so I'll retract that.
This shows.
I know that they have a huge.
These Saudi investors, they're not like they just look at what's sexy and hot rather than actually doing like financial. Like I don't know who's advising these idiots. Like they're just like oh, what's sexy? These tech companies, they're so sexy. Let's buy them, right? Like they don't. Like they're such bad investors. I don't understand. I don't really understand how could people with so much money not hire better advisors?
Yeah, I know that Prince Talal owns a lot of. I think it's Twitter. He owns a large amount of that, and Fox News is pretty. They actually have shares in Fox News and stuff. So there's a lot of tech stock.
Wouldn't like a lot of these investment banks in the United States go to at least tell them like, hey, pay us and we'll tell you what to invest in? Like, I don't understand. Like, isn't there a lot of interest for people with foreign policy experience, people with finance experience to go to these Saudi monarchs and tell them like, hey, we can tell you what to. I don't like are they unreachable? Like I don't understand how this works, but I really want to know what happens behind
there. It's a tough thing because I know that when Obama was, it's weird. So I guess this is something that for the audience to ponder. And if you guys have any thoughts on this, let me know. But when you write an op-ed, and you're writing an opinion piece, you have to be about 70-80% sure of what you're writing. You have to really believe what you think, but there's no other implications. You're just kind of putting your opinion out there. But if you're in a position of power and you're drafting policy, you can't just think of it like you're writing an op-ed and putting an opinion out there. You have to look at the consequences. So if you're going to go against Saudi Arabia, you're going to be like, fuck this, I'm going against Saudi Arabia. You're like, okay, well, so what will Saudi Arabia do in retaliation? And then you have to look at that. You have to think about how many people are going to go into unemployment, how far down the NASDAQ's going to drop. You have to think about all of these things because they're going to affect your people and they're going to affect your re-election chances as well.
No, but yeah, I know. Okay, so even though the people like in this... but I'm saying, I mean, the morality of it aside, because obviously these people are thinking about the financial institution and then compared to actual people dying and starving, right? But even forgetting about putting aside the morality, the people on this side at least are doing proper calculations based on what they think is the opportunity cost, right? They're doing the cost benefit analysis in the right way. Like even though we don't endorse their support of Saudi Arabia, it's based on something. But if you look at Saudi Arabia itself, it's just so based on I don't understand based on what it is. I mean, if all of these accusations and what happened in Turkey in the consulate is if it's exactly the way that they say it's happened, like look who he hired. He hired his own. Like they didn't even use their own intelligence. They must have had people that could have done this in a much more secretive way. Like they hired who? The bodyguard, like somebody that is so close to Ben Salman that will go back to him so closely. Who did they have in the people that they sent to kill this guy? It was one of the an autopsy specialist or something. Like
they actually had they had a forensic doctor go there to supervise the killing, and he advised them to listen to music while they're dismembering him.
Okay, but
It's incredible. Yeah.
but he was face is going to be on camera on his way from Saudi Arabia to the airport to the Turkey consulate, and people are going to be like, well, why did this guy show up there? Like, who was advising this? Like I can there are so many criminals, like low level criminals, that could have done a better job. Like, these people with so much money.
I mean, they did it because they think that they can get away with it. They think this is a time for other. It's just true. There's a lot of despotic leaders in the world.
But they had the resources to do a better job at getting away with it. I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah, I know. It's strange that there's audio recordings of it, and the whole thing is like I don't know what they were thinking.
We got a super chat from Billy, by the way. Another one. Thank you.
Another
Billy.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it. Hold on.
It's a new one.
Can you read it out?
Isn't Saudi trying to get off a reliance of oil money? Yes, Billy, they're trying, and they're fucking failing at it. I mean, good. I hope they fail at it.
This is going to actually throw a wrench in that, because they were about to have a meeting. Mohammed bin Salman.
Vision 2030 is not looking at all like it's going to be possible.
No, so he wanted to. One of the reasons he was doing all these reforms and everything on the surface is that he wanted to show everybody that Saudi Arabia is modernizing. So he wanted to attract foreign investment, because they know that they know that it's going to run out of oil very soon.
They know they're running out of oil. They know that they can't depend on oil, and they're like, hey.
And even if they're not running out, they know that people are not going to need it after some time.
Yeah, and they wanted to sell, the valuation for the company. What's that? Aramco? Is that what it's called? What is it called? The oil company that they have. Their valuation, they wanted to do an IPO, and now the IPO is stopping because they know that the valuation is not nearly as much as they want, and now it's going to go down. People are pulling out their investment. There's supposed to be a conference or something. A lot of companies are now pulling out and not going there anymore. This is great. I want the Vision 2030 to fail, because these people deserve to go extinct, and I think,
and this is the real con job. And so Jim is saying Trump is tweeting about a woman calling her horseface another Pocahontas, and he's more worried about an arms deal than an American resident being butchered. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't think there's any, like, what he's doing is inexcusable. One of the reasons that the Saudis think they can get away with it is because he's gone around praising all of these dictators and these despotic leaders, saying, I believe them, they denied it, I believe it, Putin, I believe him, but he doesn't believe the people he should be believing who are at home. I mean, it's just...
Matt is confirming he's from Saudi Arabia. Thank you, Matt. It's Aramco. Yes, I was right about that. But
I remember Matt from last time. Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. The problem with this whole thing is that, okay, so we're seeing a lot of pushback from the world now against Saudi Arabia. But we don't know how much of this is going to be real, right? Because there's so much money involved. There's so much money involved in arms. Like this, we're not talking about millions, we're not talking about billions, we're talking about trillions, right? And this is the war industry. And when it comes to this much money,
Canada has a $15 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia too.
Yeah, but when we're talking about industries this big, the people that need these deals to go through, this is not conspiracy theory. Like, if you're involved with these deals and and a bad relationship between Saudi Arabia and United States is going to hurt these potential billion-dollar deals, they're going to try to, as much as they can, to get a way to influence these politicians in a way to not do something like this. So whenever there's this much money involved, unfortunately, there's going to be, it's going to be hard. Sometimes these when politicians say we're going to take action against Saudi Arabia, we have to wait and see how much of this is real. I mean, but the good thing is, at least, is that even if it's just talk, but there's not going to be any sanctions or any, just a slap on the wrist against Saudi Arabia. The thing is that the private companies are scared, right? And they don't know what's going to happen, and politics is unpredictable. And the private companies being scared, that's enough for stock prices to drop, Saudi stock prices to drop, and for interest rates for Saudi being able to borrow money go higher, right? Just the fear is enough, right? And that's going to make Saudis, make things very difficult for Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Aziz is saying Louis Farrakhan is the current lead of Nation of Islam. He has some crazy ideas, but his slam on Barack Obama was awesome. I don't know about the slam on Barack Obama. I haven't seen it, but I'll look it up. Um, Now, Mars is saying, is Linda Sarsour still associated with him? I guess Louis Farrakhan, is she not? Yeah, she's a fan, and I think Linda Sarsour is becoming increasingly irrelevant now because even the sort of leftist politicians who were sort of throwing their arms around her have started distancing themselves and talking about her less, since a lot of her anti-Semitic comments came out and some of the reality of what she thinks. And she's actually done tremendous harm to what was a really important and needed movement at this time. The Women's March was something that's very, very needed at this time. And she's done tremendous harm to it and completely corrupted it. And especially like her credibility issues and the kind of people that she supports and the kind of things that she said. I think that even I know Jake Tapper has had huge problems with her. She called Jake Tapper alt-right. When you're calling Jake Tapper alt-right, you're done.
Linda
right?
Sarsour retweeted me. I've been retweeted by both Linda Sarsour and Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, that's good. That's a badge of honor.
That's weird.
That's
Okay.
I want to repeat that for everybody. Armin has been retweeted by Linda Sarsour, and he's also been retweeted by Tommy Robinson. So here you go. Okay, so just to show you how far this, like whoever wants to use ex-Muslims for whatever platform they want, and that's why we need to have our own platform. Just because somebody's offering you a platform, you don't have to take it. Be true to what you think. Now Jimmy is saying Arabs are Semites too, so Farrakhan is insulting most people. Yeah, the Semitic people include Arabs. Mars.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Every time we say anti-Semitic, people are like, oh, you don't know what anti-Semitic means, Arabs as well. So anti-Semitic is not just anti-Jewish. But yes, but the word anti-Semitic is now associated with Jew hatred. People know what you mean anti-Semitic. Yes, we know what Semitic means.
Like sort of like Muslim is now associated with identity.
Right. No, but when
I'm
people
triggering you.
It didn't work though. But I'm saying we know what people mean by anti-Semitic, but what they're referring to is Jew hatred. But go on.
Right. So Zara is saying being a feminist and a Muslim, is it an oxymoron? I would be more specific in saying being a feminist and saying that you are Islamic. That's an oxymoron. I know a lot of Muslim women who are very, very secular, but I don't think that you can believe in Islam and be a feminist at the same time.
I think you can, because people have contradictory opinions in their, people have competing ideas in their mind. Like, this is what I would say. I think Islam and feminism are contradictory, right? But you can be feminist and Muslim at the same time, because
I agree with that.
Yeah, because Muslims ignore Islam, right? A lot of Muslims ignore Islamic teachings, and they are pro-secularism, pro-gay rights. Not obviously not all of them, but pro-gay rights, pro-democracy, pro-woman rights. So Islam contradicts feminism, but Muslims can be feminists.
Yeah, there's a great example of this in Yuval Noah Harari's new book, and quoting him again, is where he talks about how you have a typical Tea Party Republican supporter, and this is an evangelical Christian, like super believes in Jesus, loves Jesus, and Jesus wanted to always help the poor, and he was all about pacifism. But this guy is totally against social safety nets and entitlements, and he is a contributing member to the NRA, and all of those identities exist simultaneously, because cognitive dissonance is that's just rampant in all human societies. This is part of the human condition, it seems. Alex is saying, do you see young ex-Muslims making more friendly and fun online content on Instagram and YouTube, like ex-Muslims try bacon for the first time videos? I'm going to give a shout out to Vidu Vids, right?
Yes, Armin? Vidu Vids is our
Check it out.
Favorite ex-Muslim comedian.
Yeah, and we're going to be having him on this show sometime in November. So I've talked to him, and we just have to solidify a date for it. And as soon as I have that, I'll get it out to you guys. But yeah, he's really, really funny, And he actually does really good impressions. I mean, he's very talented. He's a talented sort of comedy guy.
You know, a lot of
and we need more of that. We need more of that. We need more ex-Muslims instead of just doing. And I know that they do talks and all of that's important. Conferences, speeches, everything's important. But we need more people doing stand-up comedy and music and writing TV pilots and stuff like that. We need it because, like we said, storytelling is really, really important. It's just as important as the cerebral stuff.
Okay, but a lot of people recognize Bibi for his comedy, but they don't. I think he also deserves credit for a lot of the discussion videos he does because he's not just funny; he's actually very good.
Oh yeah,
he's also a very good interviewer.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
and he had an episode with Abdullah Gondal that was actually pretty killer.
Right.
And yeah,
Uday, we got another super chat from Uday. Thank you so much, Uday. It's very kind. He's saying, he or she, sorry. Uday, he or she, let me know. Please invite Atheist Hindu. His Twitter account username is Kushal Mehra.
I have been seeing some tweets from, he has come up with a full response of many, many, many points to our show with Zubin yesterday,
right.
And he is going to do his own podcast about it. And so yeah, I would be happy to read up about what he's about and then call him on. It'd be cool.
But we need to, because me and you don't know as much about Hinduism as if we have him on the show, we need to have somebody. We need to have Zubin at the same time on the show as well, I think, to be able to respond to him because Because we don't know how to respond to him. Like we could we
can have him on. We can learn from him, see what he says, and we can. We'll see. We'll figure out how to do it.
All right, good.
We'll discuss that offline. So the next one from Cuntspell.
We have Abdullah Samir is in the live chat, and genetically modified skeptic is also in the live chat.
That's cool. We're gonna get to all of that.
Okay,
we still have some time.
Okay.
So Cuntspell is saying, is there any basis in Islam for black Muslims' proclamations that whites are genetic experiments?
What?
No.
Can you repeat that? Wait, what?
Black Muslims, apparently, I guess this is the Elijah Muhammad crowd. What? Wait, hold on. Why are you laughing?
No, I didn't. Okay. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, Lishpa's in the room. She's laughing. She's saying, is there any basis in Islam for black Muslims' proclamations that whites are genetic experiments? I don't know about the Elijah Muhammad Islam, but generally in Islam, no, there isn't.
Okay.
So,
okay, next question.
Sorry, Jim is saying, Sarsour is not really associated with Nation of Islam. Other women's march leaders have some ties to Nation of Islam, but Sarsour won't say anything negative about Nation of Islam. Yeah, which means that she is associated. She is supportive of Farrakhan and all of that. And there are other women's march leaders who have said supportive things about them as well, and they have ties with them. So it's just a bad association for the Women's March because these guys are not only of the anti-Semitic, I mean, they're extremely misogynistic as well, and it just discredits the Women's March even more. And I think that it's a devastating tragedy because this is a time when we really need the Women's March. But unfortunately, it has been corrupted by these people. Zara is saying, I'm keen on starting a few episodes with other ex-Muslim women. Just audios, though. Do you think that might be of interest to all of you? Yes. And so I want to plug, Zara is Faithless Hijabi on Instagram. Yes. So go Faithless Hijabi. She started this. And also check out our episode with her. It was, I think, the most recent episode. It's called Shia Muslims Leaving Islam.
Our best episode.
Yeah, our best one ever. Yeah. So So I think that we're going to be promoting it as much as we can. We're going to be trying to get behind it. Yeah. Zara, I've seen some of the memes and some of the stuff that you've been putting on Instagram, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
and it's something that I want to recommend to a lot.
What she needs is a good area for her shows. Like she needs like a proper microphone and headset, and proper like. We should get on a call, Zara, at some point, and we can talk about it. And we can kind of share some of our experience with you in terms of how to get it out there. Right.
And we would absolutely love to support you on that and get it out there.
Right.
Aziz, he's explaining Mufti Abu Layth is more reformist, modernist young imam. He's either in his 30s or 40s. He rocks muscle t-shirts while giving his fatwas. He's a little too much for me, but has some good stuff.
Is he an actual mufti, or is he just call himself a mufti?
Well, he's so far. I know that he's a YouTube mufti, but again, I don't want to comment about it until I actually see it. So, Reason on Faith. Hey, what's up? Abu Laith has put out some very reasonable videos. For example, telling Muslims to back off harassing ex-Muslims, and that people can be sincere disbelievers. We should get him on the show. We should reach out to him.
Yeah,
This actually
get on it.
sounds. Yeah, I'll get on it. Okay. Yeah, and then more stories suppressed from Yemen. We've got Yemen. Okay. N. Croc is saying, do you have any hints on not using racist / offensive language towards Arabs while criticizing Islam? I often find myself saying things like Islam is mostly the traditions of desert Arabs. So Armin has talked about this quite a bit because like there's a lot of
I should have a UBC talk that is going to be coming out soon about this. I mean, the easiest way of not saying racist things is just not being a racist. I don't really understand. Like, there's not that much to it. Just criticize ideas and don't condemn a whole bunch of an entire group of people. There's not that much to it. Is there like?
There is. I mean, sometimes we say something like this was a, like sometimes like I've said this when women are. Some women say, okay, you're talking about the hijab, you're a man, why are you trying to mansplain? I'm like, okay, so you don't want to take mansplaining from a 21st century person, but you want to be mansplained to by 7th century Arabs.
But even if you weren't,
so, but that's a factual statement.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter even if it weren't mansplained from like a 7th century or whatever. I mean, I just think like don't care about things that people had no choice in. Right? Like about their gender, not an issue. Their race, not an issue. Right? Their height, not an issue. Their hair color, not an issue. Their nationality, not an issue. Their ideas, go at it. Right? Things that they had no choice in deciding what it ended up being, just doesn't make any sense to criticize. It doesn't make any sense to even point it out. It should be irrelevant. It should be irrelevant. I mean, it's not irrelevant. That's why we have to talk about it, to make it irrelevant, to point out that they're irrelevant. But I just don't understand. It doesn't seem that complicated. But Billy B is saying religion poisons everything for all races equally. Well, not sure if it's equally.
Yeah. I'm just looking up this. By
the way, that was another super chat. Thank you so much, Billy.
Yeah, I'm looking up this thing about the white people being genetic experiments. It's actually, there's some basis to it. So whoever asked that question, thank you. You totally made my night. It's awesome. I didn't even know about that. I'm gonna.
That's the conspiracy that white people are genetic experiments?
No. This is something that apparently is part of the belief of some African American Muslims, like the Elijah Muhammad.
That white people are genetic experiments.
Yeah. So it's going to be... Anyway, I'll read up about that and hopefully we'll talk about it next time.
Yeah, let's bring it up.
Zara is plugging Faithless Hijabi again, and I am perfectly fine with that. So thank you. I'll mention as many times as needed. Aziz is any good journalist in Yemen you recommend? You already answered that. I answered it. Jimmy is reminding us about the photo of the Syrian boy washed up in Turkey. We talked about that. And okay, so yeah, sorry, I'm some of these questions I'm trying to go in order, so they came up a little while earlier. Uday is saying, do you plan to bring Atish Taseer? I don't. Is Atish Taseer, is he one of related to Salman Taseer? Or yeah, I don't know. But yes, not him, but somebody else to talk about the Asia Bibi thing. So Jimmy is saying Nusantara Rising Kamu Orang Indonesia. Okay, so this is something in Indonesian. We need to bring
somebody needs to give us a good ex-Muslim or activist to bring on from Indonesia and one from Malaysia. Please recommend somebody good to talk to, because we think that these are countries that have been way too much ignored. Given that Indonesia is the most populated Islamic country in the world, and we don't talk about it as much. I don't think that's right, and I don't think that I don't think we should be ignoring it. But we do need somebody from there with good information to come on the show.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So Alonzo, hey Alonzo, Lonzo saying, given yesterday's podcast on Hinduism and given Hinduism's age and origins, would it be worthwhile to do a podcast on Shinto, since it's also an old ethno religion and has some parallels with Hinduism? I know a little bit about Shinto. I read it and I think it's really fascinating. This is the religion of ancient Japan, and it was actually adhered to very, very strongly by people there. I think that's a great parallel, and we should actually talk about
Atish
that.
Taseer is assassinated Governor Salman Taseer's son. So is that?
Oh, so he's another one. So, yeah,
there's two sons?
There's several sons. Like there's like I think he had 3 or 4 kids. So, but but we will be. I'll reach out to them. I just don't want to mention it right now because I don't know if they're going to agree. Obviously, they have a lot at stake, so that's why. Zain, okay, Zain, no. Yeah, Sohan is, hey, Sohan, how's it going? Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam, Sohan. Sohan. All right, so, yeah, Canadian-Saudi relations. Sohan is saying, Ali, did you personally meet the person who wrote the recent article calling you controversial? Oh, so yeah, I'll talk about this. No, I didn't personally meet that person. But I'll let you guys know. So I recently did a talk at University of Toronto at Mississauga. This was on October 2nd. And there is an article in the Varsity, which is the University of Toronto's student newspaper. And the title is The Blurry Line of Controversial Speech. And the subtitle is Ali Rizvi's talk at the recent UTM Snyder Lecture is a reminder that free speech, unless inciting violence or hate, must be upheld. Got some disagreements with that here and there, but overall, this was actually a really heartening article. It was written by a Muslim student. So the UTM has a huge Muslim population, lots of Muslim students. When I was invited to talk there was a lot of controversy. A lot of them went up to the administration. They said that they didn't want me there. They thought that the stuff I said was insulting to Islam and it would be offensive to them and it would be Islamophobic and so on. The university, to their credit, stood their ground, and they said, "No, we want to have a free exchange of ideas," and they stood up for free speech. This is very different from the University of Toronto in actual Toronto last year, who, when I had an event there with Sarah Hayter and ex-Muslims in North America, they canceled it. They actually pulled out of it last minute. So So I was actually very encouraged that this happened. And now what she did was she wrote an article. I'll put a link to the article in the description as well. And she said that I'll quote some parts of it. Such a predicament occurred last Tuesday.
This is a Muslim woman, right?
Yeah, this is a Muslim woman. Her name is Sharmeen Abedi. So she said, many Muslim students at UTM's annual Schneider Lecture. This year's lecture featured controversial figure and award-winning author Ali Rizvi, whose talk was entitled "The Muslim Enlightenment." Okay, that's whatever. So she said, So this part. Many students believed that UTM was wrong to invite Rizvi under the perception that he held anti-Islamic views. Being a Muslim, I too disapproved of this invitation, yet was curious enough to attend the lecture. Then she goes on to say that contrary to what she expected, I was talking a lot about blasphemy laws and the kind of things that ex-Muslims go through around the world, the Mashal Khan case, the Raif Badawi case, and so on. So I'll read one other part of it. It says that, according to its website, the Schneider Lecture Committee's aim is to bring in speakers who, quote, enrich the intellectual and cultural life of the UTM community, end quote. Although that was not my reaction, I could tell that many people in the audience did consider this to be an intellectual discussion relevant to them. It made me realize that, at the end of the day, despite my personal outrage, I have no basis to argue that speakers such as Rizvi should not be included on campus.
Nice.
Universities are safe places for expressions of individual thought and differing ideas, even if they may offend us. And I love that. I love the fact that
someone's going to say that's Taqiyya.
No, I mean the fact that she went in and honestly, kudos to her for going in and being so sort of skeptical and I guess cynical about it. And then even though she completely disagreed and she says she was outraged, she still thinks that speakers like this should be allowed to come on. And it was the audience was actually, there were a lot of Muslims in the audience. I got a lot of questions from them. it went beyond the time that was allotted for it, but it was a fantastic
actually,
event.
this is very interesting because I've always noticed that a lot of Muslims are less sensitive. Like, okay, a lot of Muslims are sensitive and they want you killed and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of Muslims that get curious when you have disagreements with them and they want to come and listen. Like when I did the talk in UBC, there were Muslim people in the audience, right? That wanted, and my event was called "How to Defeat Islam."
Yeah.
And Muslims showed up, and guess what? The conversation was friendly, even though my event was titled "How to Defeat Islam." Okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I got kicked out of some groups for having this event and Facebook and stuff. These were mostly lefty, social justice warrior type people. And guess what? None of those people showed up. So, and they think because I was a racist or a bigot or a xenophobe, and this event was like was anti-Muslim, and they didn't show up to check it out. So they trying to protect people that they were willing to actually come and listen to the conversation.
Yeah, this is the thing. To people on the left and some of these liberals who get offended on behalf of other groups, just don't try to be saviors. People in these other communities, they want to have these conversations. When Armin went with XMNA to the ISNA conference, there were Muslims who wanted to engage with him. They sat there. They wanted to talk to ex-Muslims. There was a conversation happening between ex-Muslims and Muslims that was entirely civil and it was productive. But the people protesting it were like they weren't Muslim or ex-Muslims.
No.
They were just like other people were offended for some reason on behalf of it. People who were protesting the Muslims. People were protesting you guys. So it's just let these conversations happen. It's not. As this writer so rightly pointed out in this article, these conversations help. There's nothing to be scared of. She didn't want to go there before she came, and she realized that okay, there was nothing to be scared of. This is not. It's not threatening, right? It's just.
We got to
let these things happen. Yeah, can you read it out? The super chat.
Say you guys should collab with VideoViz and make a secular jihadist music video feat with Abdullah Samir Harris. I think he's talking about Harris Sultan, Sarah Mo. I think he's talking about Sarah Haider, Muhammad Sayed, and other vocal ex-Muslims.
We should. This is the new crew. This is it. This is what I like. The fact that I love the fact that Abdullah
a music
Samir,
video.
Yeah. And of course, a music video. Look, we've got. I actually have written some songs about it. So
by the way,
I do
Mubin,
music.
thank you, Mubin Ahmed. Thank you so much for the super chat. Yeah, but
so I think Video Vids, Abdullah Samir, Harris Sultan, Abdullah Gondal, Hassan Radwan, all these guys, they have brought a lot of compassion to this conversation.
Yeah.
Right. They come from backgrounds that are Muslims. They're not just where that you had the left saying, well, no, all Muslims are great people, they're all hippies, and we love them all, and then you had the right saying these guys should be deported and they're all assholes. If you like the Quran, you're automatically a terrorist. And these guys they come from families where they know that there's a difference. I mean, Jimmy Bungash is another one, right? So he talks about these. So that's, I think, this is a new generation that's come up. They've become very vocal about it. And I love it. I love these guys, and I see eye to eye with them on a lot of this. Okay. So it's really good to have a team out there, and I think we should totally do a music video.
All right, go tweet at VideoViz and tell him about this idea.
Yeah, I will. I'll talk to him.
Everybody in the live chat. All right, but go on.
Okay, so Mars is saying, Armin, Ali, I think you both gave 2 separate individual talks at events over the last few weeks. Can I ask how those events went? So we already talked about my thing. I won't bore you with that more, but
I did as well.
Armin did too. Yeah, they both went really, really well.
Yeah.
Jimmy, Armin, what is your prediction on Iran? There seems to be a huge secular young population. Will they eventually become a majority and end the theocracy? Will the change be bloodless? So, Armin, you've talked about this a lot in the past. Can you give like a brief...
Well, I could tell. Well, I just recently wrote an article called. I did a interview article with Scott called "How to Defeat the Islamic Republic of Iran," and I kind of summarize everything over there. Should I link to it?
Mm.
I'll just link to it
Yeah, link to it.
All
And
right.
and there is also previous episodes that we've done on Iran specifically. The very first episode we did in 2018 was about Iran, and Armin actually talked at length about a lot of the stuff that you're asking. So do check it out. I think it's our inaugural episode for 2018.
Well, one thing I point in this article is that even though, yes, there's a lot of people in Iran that want secularism, want less religion, a lot of people from Iran also and other places underestimate the influence and power that religion still has in Iran, and the number of people that do still support the government. There's no reliable polling, but just read the article. I'm just going to link right to it in the live chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ever ready? This is, I don't think I've seen him here. Is saying, I have a question, a serious one, if you will indulge. Just ask your question. So don't do this stuff. Just go ahead and ask a question, and then we will answer it. Okay, so Jimmy, we're talking about Taqiyya again. Sorry, guys, I'm going to go through the questions now because we have a little bit of time left. A genetically modified skeptic. Hey, back again.
Yeah.
Check out his YouTube.
Check out his YouTube.
I know, I subscribed.
Yeah, he's very good.
So,
he's very good. Yeah.
So he's asking, what can I make a video about right now that will help the cause of ex-Muslims and defeating Islam? That's a really good question. I think that we'd have to think about that and maybe talk about it offline.
What video to help the cause of ex-Muslims?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I have found that's really powerful and it worked really well in so one of the things I did in my talk when I talked about the Muslim Enlightenment is I showed all of the headlines from the BBC, New York Times, all these like major papers about the ex-Muslim movement, ex-Muslims rising, how in The Economist 23% of American Muslims have left the religion, so on. So those numbers, and then I showed all of the ex-Muslim because tweets. Remember that hashtag ex-Muslim because?
Right.
Showing all of these ex-Muslims around the world talking about why they left Islam. And that, if you can have accounts of different people who have left Islam, they're talking about why they left it, that I have found to be the single most powerful message out there. Because then other ex-Muslim people look at it who've had doubts, who are closeted, they think that they're not alone. And for everybody else, like the Muslims, they realize, wow, this is a thing. This is an option. These people are doing it.
I think one thing you could do is to compare the ex-Muslim movement with the reform movement, and to debunk, because I think a lot of people that are afraid of Islam or they want less Islam on the planet, basically sane people, they put their hopes and investments and resources on Islamic reform, which is basically taking attention and resources away for where it actually matters, which is the ex-Muslim movement. So I think comparing the two movements and their influence and their hopes that each one of them has, and basically showing how much faster the ex-Muslim movement is growing and how much more influential it is, and how much the reform movement is just like a false hope for something that is never going to happen. I think that will maybe convince a lot of people to refocus their attention from reforming Islam to actually encouraging more and more people and giving voice to people that are actually leaving Islam.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through some of these are comments, and now I'm just going to focus on questions, guys. Normally I would read your comments, but I'm going to go into this. So Dennis Engineer is saying, I want to ask a question. Why Sood chose the Turkey for spelling error. Why did the Saudis choose Turkey for killing a journalist? Have you any guess?
Well, because he was there.
Yeah, he was there.
He was living there.
His fiance was Turkish.
Yeah.
And he wanted to get papers.
For the divorce. He was going to the Saudi consulate for a divorce, for getting from his wife so that he could marry.
Oh, wasn't he getting marriage papers or trying to get? Oh yeah, because
he was married to a Saudi woman, I think, and he was trying to get divorced from her so that he could marry this Turkish woman.
Oh, okay.
I think,
okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was that, or he was getting it there to get some papers. Either way.
Yeah.
Eveready is saying you misunderstand the concept of taqiyya is not explained as taqiyya. The truth being all Muslims lie. because they are told to lie for the greater good. Islam. That's not true.
That's nonsense.
It's just nonsense. It's not. If when you hear people talking about taqiyya, 99% of the time, it's bullshit, and they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Generally,
Okay.
most Muslims don't know what taqiyya is.
Who said this in the live chat?
This is Everready.
Everready. I was a Muslim, and when I was a Muslim, I had nobody told me about taqiyya. Okay, I was Muslim for many years. We had Islamic teaching in school. We were being brainwashed about Islam. I had no fucking idea about taqiyya. Okay, I learned about taqiyya as an ex-Muslim rather than as Muslim, and we were never told that we should be lying all the time. We were never told that. In fact, they were saying lying is a sin. So I don't know where you're getting that from.
Yeah. So anyway, we have to run through this really quickly. Again, we're just going to go through the questions. There's a lot of conversations happening here, which is amazing. Adil is saying that Zubin was awesome yesterday. I agree. I think he was really good. Matt from Saudi Arabia. What do you think of the legalization of marijuana in Canada? And do you smoke it? Hashtag 420. Armin, are you a pot guy?
I tried it so many times, and THC has zero impact on me, and people think I'm bullshitting them, but I tried it so many times, and it doesn't make me high. And I looked it up. Eventually, it seems like there's 3% of the population that are immune to THC. I mean, it's not, and it's just THC. Like, I've tried other things. I tried mushrooms, and that has an impact on me. Alcohol has an impact on me, but THC, it just doesn't get me high. Like, I tried, I smoked it. I used a vaporizer. I ate cookies. Like, my brother he smokes pot a lot.
You've put in a lot of effort.
Well, it tastes really good and it smells really good, right? So I was like I ate like 5 or 6 cookies at one point, and people were like so amazed that it's not having any impact on me. Like, they were getting fully baked with just half a cookie, and I was just eating them, and they were like, well, if it's not doing anything, you're stop fucking wasting them. I like, but it tastes good. So I like the smell and taste, but it doesn't make me high.
Yeah, no, I've done it sometimes, but I'm not a frequent user. It wires me up too much. Right. Gets my brain way too active, so I prefer sort of dulling down.
Isn't it supposed to do the other thing? Isn't it the other way around?
No, your brain, you just start thinking, you start wandering, you start getting all these ideas. It's a lot of fun. I think it's really good for.
So I'm missing out. I think I'm missing out.
Yeah, but I start feeling really like my heartbeat becomes really fast and stuff, and I can feel that. So I don't love it, but I'm glad it's legal. I think I'm happy about that. And congratulations, Canada. We legalized it today, as of the day of this recording.
I'm hoping that's going to bring a lot of tourism money to Canada.
Yeah. I hope so, especially from the U.S. It'd be great if we don't build a big, beautiful wall on our southern border.
A wall made out of weed.
Yeah, so I think they're talking again about yesterday's episode. Some people are talking about bringing in other guests, and that's duly noted. Thank you for the feedback. And a genetically modified skeptic, you're getting another compliment from Mars. He seconds Reason on Faith. Your videos are great. It's nice to see you here. Matt is saying that Saudi Arabia contributed feminist values, like women are known to have half a brain of a man. Yeah, I know, unfortunately. Okay, so... Again, just looking for questions now, guys. Nusantara saying, how true is a statement that Khomeini forced the hand of the Saudi and other Arab groups who were liberalizing in the 1970s to cede to Wahhabi more power to the Wahhabis?
It's kind of true, but I don't know if it could be forced. It influenced them, but I don't know if it forced them. They just got really paranoid. Again, explaining things doesn't mean they were excusing it. I think forced is a little bit going overboard with it. They could have chose to not do it, but I think they felt like, because remember when Khomeini came to power, at first Muslims around the world didn't see this as a Shia uprising. They saw this as an Islamic uprising, right? And Khomeini was a hero in the Islamic world. It was an Islam. This is at a time, remember, that Islam is seen as weak. The West is seen as powerful. Muslims are seen as like Islam is dying. It seems like it's going the way of Christianity. And all of a sudden, this guy stands against the U.S. and wins, and Muslims take power. They rule a country. This guy becomes revolution. Muslims, there was such a powerful thing in the eyes of a lot of Muslims all around the world. I mean, this is before eventually Sunnis saw this as a Shia thing and started hating on Iran's Shia influence all around the Middle East. At this time, he was a hero. And this anti-monarchist attitude became very popular. And guess what? Saudis are monarchists. And right in 1979, when this happened, they had their own Shia uprisings, and they had their own Salafi uprisings. They had the shooting right in fucking Kaaba, and they were like, "Fuck!" The Shah, with all the U.S. support, went down. So we have U.S. support, but apparently U.S. support is not good enough. We need to listen to this religious people. Apparently they're not happy with us, that we're becoming too Western, too secular, so they feel like they need to give them some, they need to give them something. So everything became extremely religious. And also, it's not just things going backwards in Saudi. So this is, the Saudi Arabia is the marriage between two families from the very beginning. The house of Saud versus with the house of Wahhab, right? So the house of Saud is basically all the money, all the capitalism, all the investing, all the oil. The house of Wahhab is all the religious extremism. And basically the whole power is between these two groups, right? So apparently before 1979, the House of Saud was starting to ignore a little bit of this religious extremism for Western style kind of living, but because of Iran, they were like, okay, fuck that, House of Wahhab, let's kiss and make up. And then everything became a lot more religious, and now again we're going through another phase, which is interesting. But anyways, I said
So Nusantara saying in Indonesia,
one more thing I add. It wasn't just inside Saudi Arabia, because Khomeini saw this as an Islamic revolution, not an Iranian revolution. Khomeini was spreading his Vilayat Faqih version of Shia Islam, spreading it all over the Middle East, and as a response to that, Saudi Arabia was spreading Wahhabism all over, not just the Middle East, but also in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and even in the Far East. But go on.
Mm-hmm. So Nusantara is saying, in Indonesia, we have a street gang called FPI, who are similar to what Antifa is in the West, but Islamic. How can we deal with them? Do you support secularists arming themselves?
Secularists arming themselves. Well, that's a very general thing to say. Where are we? Where is this again?
Indonesia. So they have a street gang that is kind of, I'm assuming they're armed. They're called FPI. And he's saying that how can we deal with them? Do you support secularists arming themselves? I think that if you have to fight back and if the other side's armed, they're out to kill you, then yeah.
I think we need to know more about the specifics of the situation.
Yeah, this thing about guns. Look, when I lived in Pakistan, we had guns in the house. Like we had.
Doesn't studies shows that having guns actually makes it more likely that you're gonna get shot?
I mean, that depends. So if you're in a society where the chances of someone breaking into your house are very low, then yeah, the chances of the gun going off by accident in your house are more.
Even if somebody breaks in the house, if they're coming with the gun, they're not necessarily coming necessarily with the intention to kill you. But if you pull a gun, now it's going to turn into a gunfight.
No, our house was actually broken into by the Taliban.
What? Holy shit! You never told me that.
This is around when was it? Like 1996 or something. So we had a joint house. There were two houses in the same that were connected. Like imagine.
Never told this story. That's crazy.
Yeah. So my aunt was living in one house and we were in the other. And then her family, the Taliban broke into their place, so we shut our gate. And my sister and my brother were kind of watching everything from the window into the other house. And what they did was, so one of the things they did was they stole my cousin's guns. So they did do that. So you're right, that can be dangerous. They had his daughter at gunpoint. They did all
Wait, the
kinds of
people
crap.
that broke in stole the guns that you had and used it against them?
No, no,
So,
no. They didn't use it. They were just stealing guns. They wanted to take them and keep them,
oh,
right?
so they
But they
broke
did.
it.
But they had their own weapons, and
Right.
they did hold everybody at gunpoint. They kicked my cousin in the head, all that stuff. But then, what my cousin, he had one gun that he used to keep by his bedside that they didn't see.
Okay.
And when they were running away, he shot them. And then they went to all the different hospitals to see where he was, and they found him, and they were able to arrest them and all that stuff. So
That's fucking crazy.
and they did get scared away by the gun.
Right, but that's crazy, and I'm surprised you never told that story until now. But
I think I may have mentioned it at some point before, but in passing.
that's anecdotal though. Like I think statistically, if somebody's robbing your house with guns, you pulling out a gun, you could, on average, turn things.
But see, that's what I'm saying. It depends. So there's a risk benefit analysis here. So if you're in a situation where the chances of you someone breaking into your house is very, very high, and the chances of them being armed is very high, then you should probably have a gun, because the benefit of you having a gun will probably it'll benefit you more in that situation. But if you're in a society where people don't really break into houses that much, and when they do,
even in societies with guns and people break into your house, I'm just saying things could turn a lot worse because you pulled out a gun.
They could.
Listen, I don't know.
It's not.
I think there was a study. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's sure, but the studies, a lot of those studies are going to be in the U.S. where people don't break into, the Taliban isn't breaking into people's Shia's houses every day, right? So in those kinds of situations, you leave it long enough, but the higher chance of the gun's gonna go off by accident and your kid will die or something, right? But if you're living in a place where you're a Shia family and there's a lot of Taliban people who are aching to come in and kill you, then I would rather have a gun than not. And we did have guns, so it really depends.
Harry Sultan is saying I'm wrong, and I don't know. I might be completely wrong about this. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it just depends on and these studies are also done. It depends on where they're done, right?
Right.
Like if I lived in Chicago, I'd probably have a gun. Okay, so the next question is you check shake him around. Okay, sorry. Okay, just the questions. Tar is asking, have you guys seen Apostate Prophet and David Wood discussion?
Oh no.
What do you think about David Wood's approach on Islam? I haven't seen that, so I can't.
We'll watch it because of your recommendation.
Okay, so Jim is saying, was a suit ever filed against Starbucks for not allowing ex-MNA members into the store? So the answer to that is we had Mohammed Sayed from ex-MNA. And there is some sort of legal proceeding going on, but he can't talk about it too much, and he wasn't, so he could only talk about what he did. But we did have an episode about, if you look into our past episodes, very recently, where Armin talked about that whole event in detail. So there are people who are working on it, and there are legal proceedings apparently happening. And as soon as I find out anything, I'll let you guys know. Third rail talk. Okay, no, that's a comment. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go to the questions because we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah.
Third rail talk. Okay. Hi, guys.
Two more questions, huh?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, let's see. Do you want to? We've got 11 minutes, so let's see what we can fit in.
Okay. Sounds good.
I want people to have a chance. Third rail talk is saying, "Hi, guys. I'm curious. What are your views on the U.S. Constitution?" Armin, you want to go first, or should I go first?
I think it's one of the best ones out there, but obviously has a lot of flaws in it.
When it comes, I was going to say.
Yeah, when it comes to constitutions, it's one of the best, especially the free speech part, right?
Yeah. First Amendment.
Yeah, but the problem is when people treat it like it's like flawless, like it's completely
like it's a Quran,
like it's a Quran, like there's nothing wrong with it, or there can't be any improvements to it. Yeah, but relatively to other countries' constitutions, is one of the best.
Yeah, I think it's very well thought out. There's a lot of learning from experience, and I think a lot of that is related to the fact that there's no religious influence in it. I mean, not even ceremonially. Right, not even as a formality like there is in England and the Netherlands and all these other places. But I think the First Amendment is one of the things that I would really like more countries to have, because it does two things. Like when a lot of conservative people talk about the First Amendment as if it's all about free speech. and they completely ignore the part that it is explicitly against the establishment of a religion, right? They ignore the fact that it's about the separation of religion and state. So they tend to want to bring religion into state a lot, but at the same time they really want to go with free speech. But it's about both, and that's what's so amazing about it. It's about free expression, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and all of that. But it's also about separating church and state, and no establishment of a state religion. And that's what's so great about it.
Right. I mean, as a Canadian,
Second Amendment. I don't know. I think that's outdated.
As a Canadian, I'm jealous of the Americans, free speech guarantee, the free speech guarantee in their constitution. But yeah, go on.
Right, I agree. So genetically modified skeptic is that? Oh, okay. So, he's saying, what topics should I take on in a video to help you further your cause right now? Yeah, I think we already talked about that. Okay. Another question from Israg. Is supposedly witchcraft is prohibited in Islamic countries. What and how is witchcraft defined and prosecuted? Are non-Muslim prosecuted for witchcraft? The secret equals witchcraft. Okay, so witchcraft, it's not really witchcraft, but they talk about sorcery. There are people who, as recently as the last couple of years, have been executed, publicly beheaded for sorcery in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has beheaded people for sorcery in the same year that ISIS killed James Foley, beheaded James Foley, and everybody was talking about that. But Saudi Arabia was beheading people for sorcery. So yeah, a lot of it's about black magic and things like that. They're considered sinful in Islam. They're considered worthy of capital punishment. So that's basically what it is. Anything to add, Armin, to that?
So what was the question? I had to respond to something really fast.
Witchcraft in Islam, how is it defined and prosecuted?
Okay, so there's a hadith apparently. I don't know if this is a Shia hadith or is it a general hadith, but this is what we learned in school, that Muhammad said that the punishment for witchcraft is just one swing of a sword, right? Like whether you kill, like if you find the witch, hit him or her with one time with a sword. If it kills him or her, then that's fine. But if it doesn't, then you let them just live with the injury. Yeah.
So Jimmy is saying, do you guys follow Sharif Gabbar? He's an Egyptian ex-Muslim YouTuber. Yeah, we do actually. I do. He's brilliant. Yes. It's all in Arabic with English subtitles. I love his work. Don't know if he's in jail or not at the moment. Well, he was in jail. There were several against him, and insulting Islam was one of them. He is on Twitter, and he's actually occasionally comes out and he talks about it now. Unfortunately, his tweets became very, very infrequent recently when he was going through this legal trouble. But he is an example of somebody who really is making that sacrifice. I mean, he's just a very brave, extremely courageous guy.
One day, it would be such an honor if we could one day have him on the show.
Yeah, so Abdullah Samir saying, and he's right, Sharif Gabbar is not in jail, but he's trapped in Egypt.
Yeah.
Gertar is saying, what do you think about David Wood? Okay, so David Wood's approach again. Now, some of these questions are being repeated here. And then, okay, now we can do, I think just one or two more questions. So everybody who didn't get a chance, we're sorry. We'll get to you next time. This is, it's amazing that we have so many questions. So Jimmy's saying, do you think that parody is an effective way of changing minds, or is it just preaching to the converted?
No, comedy is a really good way.
I actually think it's the most effective way of changing minds, because you can take something that's very provocative and controversial, but when a stand-up comedian says it, again, it comes down to emotional connection. Storytelling and comedy, that's the thing. When people emotionally connect with something, when Jon Stewart did his political show, that changed, I think, the way that a lot of the younger generation thinks. So I think that, yes, comedy and parody are massively important.
One more question.
One more question? All right, guys, last question. What's it going to be? Oh, shit. I'm trying to... Sorry, guys, I lost my place. I'm trying to... Okay. Yeah, I'm trying not to stay quiet. Okay. Yeah, no, I think this is conversation.
I'm just gonna comment on something Zara said, and how about that? So Zara is saying Khadija was a powerful woman, yes, but she was before Islam, and women can be feminists definitely, but they don't have Islamic theology supporting the. Where is it? Where's the rest? Yeah, but I agree with Zara on that. Well, I mean, Aisha was also powerful, but she had the being after Muhammad, she had the whole "I was the wife of the Prophet" thing going for her, so she managed to use that in her advantage. But yeah, I think Zara agrees with me. It's possible to be Muslim and feminist, but that doesn't mean that there's anything in Islam supporting it, right? Like if a Muslim is feminist, the Islam part of their ideology has nothing to do with the fact that they're feminist. They're feminists in spite of Islam, not because of it.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
Okay. So, yeah, that's it, guys. I think we're done. Thank you very much for joining us on this special episode of Ask Us Anything. And by the way, we do these once a month, usually in addition to our regular episodes. So usually we have on average about 4 or 5 episodes a month, but we always have one Ask Us Anything episodes where people can come in and ask questions like this. And I'm really glad all you guys did. Again, if you enjoyed this, if you found something of value in it and you liked it, do go to secularjihadist.com or go to patreon.com/sjme. If you can't become a patron, then give us ratings on iTunes. Give us go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Share this stuff on your timelines, whatever you want to do. But just get the word out there.
Mike is saying, "Live long and prosper." Beej is saying, thank you Ali and Armin and all the chatters. Cheers. Yeah, everybody in the live chat, Zara, Jimmy, Beej, Moose, Mike, Nusantara, you guys are awesome. Who else? Oh, Harris Sultan, Genetically Modified Skeptic, John, Mubin, Billy, Mubin, Uday. Thank you guys, all of you guys. And the super chats, thank you so much for that. Again, it's amazing that our live chat is really great. So thank you all always for Jimmy saying thank you guys. Robert is saying I'm awesome. Yes, you are. Oh, and Matt from Saudi Arabia. Thanks, he's saying thanks, mashallah. By the way, Matt, thank you so much for being here and giving us your perspective. It's very much needed. Zara K, mummified. Okay, bye guys. Bye. Okay,
faithless hijabi on Instagram, everybody.
Yes. John is saying thanks. Cheers. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.